Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your master of fun and wonder, the viceroy of verisimilitude, Robert Meyer Burnett, coming at you with Robservations number 224. It's a big week, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big week. Aliens in the zeitgeist. I can't get away from them. The United States Navy has admitted that videos that you probably have watched online of purported unidentified flying objects are in fact real. Yes, that's right. UFOs are real, something we probably all really knew in our hearts, or at least hoped we knew. I hope we knew. I've told everybody that somebody actually somebody wrote that I cracked me up on one of the comments from the chat the other day that finding out that I'd like to spend the latter half of my life running from an alien invasion or helping an alien an uprising against our alien overlords. Those are the nuggets that brought them back to this show, which I stand by. You know, there's been so many shows about our alien overlords. I guess the first that I really remember on television was V, which has been recently released by Warner Home Entertainment or Warner Archive, my beloved Warner Archive. You can get V, the original 2-night miniseries. Now you can get it on Blu-ray. I've got this awesome Japanese Laserdisc box set. I just kept it. I haven't run it in a long time, but I kept it because it's cool, of the first 2 V miniseries in this really cool box set. And each disc has different artwork that it's in. I love V. I didn't like the series so much, but I do have all 18 issues of the DC comic book. I even kind of like the revival with Marina Baccarin. I thought that was pretty good. I enjoyed it in her pre-Deadpool days. But anyway, aliens. Who doesn't like talking about aliens? Real, imagined. But the United States Navy coming out and talking about aliens might be the highlight of my week. As we all know, people are going to storm Area 51 on Friday. The 20th is the day people are storming Area 51. Sorry, I have to wipe off my face. I'm just getting too overexcited, people. Overexcited. So I want to read something to you. This was on Business. This is off Business Insider. Ben Brimlow from March 12th, 2018. So this was March 12th, 2018. This was from the Business Insider. And the headline said, "The Navy keeps encountering mysterious UFOs and no one can figure out what they are." Again, from March 2018. "I can tell you, I think it was from not of this world," said retired U.S. Navy Pilot Commander David Fravor. He told that to ABC News in an interview in December 2017. "I'm not crazy. Haven't been drinking. It was after 18 years of flying. I've seen pretty much about everything I can see in that realm, and this was nothing close." Fravor was describing his encounter with an unidentified flying object during a training mission off the coast of California on November 14th, 2004. The UFO was performing seemingly impossible moves. Left, right, forward, back, just random. In Fravor's words, and then accelerated and disappeared. "I've never seen anything in my life, anything like it. I've never seen anything in my life, in my history of flying, that has the performance, the acceleration. Keep in mind, this thing had no wings," he said. Video of the incident, along with another similar encounter, was published in December by the New York Times. The second video shows U.S. Navy pilots tracking one of apparently numerous UFOs moving at high speed with seemingly no source of propulsion. This is back in 2018. This was published in the Insider. And of course, these videos that the New York Times published, one of them was from a gun cam on a fighter jet. And you can go look up these videos. They're pretty compelling. "This is an effing drone, bro," one pilot said. "There's a whole fleet of them," the other responds. As the UFO continues on its flight path, one of the pilots makes a note that their speed and direction. "They're all going against the wind. The wind is 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude." Soon, to the shock of the pilots, the UFO changes position. "Look at that thing," one calls out as the UFO somehow manages to turn on its side while still maintaining speed and direction. "It's rotating," the other pilot says. Another video posted online last Friday by To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, a private scientific research group, shows a similar incident. A U.S. Navy F-18 getting a lock on a UFO and the crew yelling their excitement and confusion at each other. Whoa, got it, one of the pilots yells after getting a lock. What the F is that thing? The other says. These videos are a select few of a number of recorded encounters between the U.S. Navy and UFOs that the Department of Defense has unclassified and released. Well, people from the Defense Department are saying that nobody was actually supposed to see those videos, and they probably shouldn't have been released. But today, on military.com, Chris Cecicia or Ciacicia. Chris Ciacicia, this actually was, I'm going to say, from Fox News, but military.com had it. UFO videos are footage of real unidentified objects. U.S. Navy acknowledges. For the first time, the U.S. This is today. For the first time, the U.S. Navy has acknowledged that 3 UFO videos that were released by former Blink-182 singer Tom DeLonge and published by the New York Times are of real unidentified objects. The Navy considers the phenomenon contained depicted in those 3 videos as unidentified. Navy spokesman Joseph Gradisher told the Black Vault, a website dedicated to declassified government documents. Gradisher added that the unidentified aerial phenomenon terminology is used because it provides the basic descriptor for the sightings, observations of unauthorized, unidentified aircraft or objects that have been observed and entering, operating in the airspace of various military-controlled training ranges. The statement has been corroborated with other media outlets. Fox News has reached out to the Navy for additional comment for this story. Military.com continues. The videos in question, known as FLIR 1, Gimbal, and Go Fast, were originally released to the New York Times and to the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences in December of 2017. Fox News reported that the Pentagon had secretly set up a program to investigate UFOs at the request of former Senator Henry Reid, Democrat of Nevada. In June 2019, Reid, now retired, expressed his desire for lawmakers to hold public hearings into what the military knows. They would be surprised how the American public wouldn't accept it, he said during a wide-ranging interview with a Nevada radio station. People from their individual states would accept it. Oh, wait, wouldn't accept it. They would be surprised how the American public would accept it. Pardon me, not wouldn't, would. Of course we would. I mean, who doesn't want to know that there's aliens? We all believe there are. Why wouldn't we want to know definitively if the United States Navy has proof of aliens? Why wouldn't we want to know? I'd want to know. Come on, bring it on. Yeah. The first video of the unidentified object was taken on November 14th, 2004, and shot by the F-18's gun camera. The second video was taken on January 21st, 2015, and shows another aerial vehicle with pilots commenting on how strange it is. The third video was also taken on January 21st, 2015, but it is unclear whether the third video was of the same object or a different one. John Greenwald Jr., who publishes the Black Vault, told Motherboard he was surprised at the language the Navy used in its official statement. I very much expected that when the U.S. military addressed these videos, they would coincide with language we see on official documents that have now been released, and they would label them as drones or balloons, Greenwald told the news outlet. However, they did not. They went on the record stating the phenomena depicted in those videos is unidentified. That really made me surprised, intrigued, excited, and motivated to push harder for the truth. Luis Elizondo, the former head of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, has previously said that people should pay attention to the comments the government is making about UFOs. What the pilots encountered that day was able to perform in ways that defied all logic and our current understanding of aerodynamics, Elizondo wrote in a Fox News op-ed of the 2004 encounter. by U.S. Navy pilots who witnessed the object off the coast of San Diego. Furthermore, beyond what pilots saw with their own trained eyes, the technological feat they encountered was further verified by the impressive Aegis Spy-1 radar, America's premier radar system at the time, and even gun camera footage and sonar systems from submarines accompanying the carrier. I guess it was a carrier group the planes were flying off of. Earlier this year, the Navy issued new classified guidelines, which I remember. I don't know if you remember this, but I do, on how to report such instances in response to unknown advanced aircraft flying into or near Navy strike groups or other sensitive military facilities and formations. Very interesting. This is, of course, the same week they're going to storm Area 51 to find them aliens, as I talked about on Monday. It's Wednesday, and since the last show on Monday, the Navy has come out with a statement that indeed these videos that were released by the New York Times in 2017 are in fact genuine, and they are calling them phenomena that are currently unidentified. I don't know about you guys and girls and gentle beings and non-binary people and people of belief systems all across the world. I don't know if this gets you as hot and bothered as it gets me. But man, I do love me some aliens. I've told you guys before, I grew up, I read every single book at the Mercer Island Public Library where I grew up on Mercer Island, Washington. I read every book on crazy phenomenon. I told you, spontaneous human combustion, the Bermuda Triangle, cow mutilations. I mean, basically everything the X-Files covered. But I read it when I was a kid. That's why I love the X-Files so much. I'm like, oh, somebody's reading the same books that I was reading. This just really boils my noodle. Let me just tell you, I think storming Area 51 is kind of a dumb idea. Ultimately, it's pretty stupid. But the impulse to find out the real information, what's really going on, I appreciate that. And as anybody who's read any amount of science fiction or watched literary science fiction, especially dealing with first contact situations, I understand. I mean, if we discovered aliens all of a sudden, there would be so many questions. Our entire civilization, which especially Western culture, which is basically a Judeo-Christian civilization, whether or not you believe in the Bible, certainly the Bible is one of the cornerstones of all of Western thought. And if suddenly extraterrestrial life was proven to be real, it would undermine the very fabric of our society. There would be so many questions. I mean, if these aliens turned out to be godless heathens, and they were more advanced, certainly technologically, than we are, and probably millions of years older, or maybe thousands of years older, however many years older, and what if they don't have a deity? I think that would immediately put a majority of our population worldwide at odds with those aliens. And of course, they would probably be vilified immediately. I mean, where are you going to build camps on the border for those kinds of illegal aliens that have massively superior technology and can go wherever they want? So much for your border wall then. You're not going to build a Dyson sphere around the solar system, are you? Although that would be cool, admittedly. I would love that. I would love to see if we had that kind of technology. It would be pretty interesting. But, it begs the question. It goes back, the fundamental question in my mind, and it always goes back to this idea that if there are aliens, even these unidentified objects that we've seen are still very much within the realm of what we understand and believe in. They're ships, they can travel, they fly. They're flying machines that are disc-shaped or look like flying saucers, which seems odd to me because why do they have to look like flying saucers unless there is something beyond, say, Einstein's theory of relativity that makes them saucers? I mean, we've been seeing saucer-shaped things in the sky. Indeed, one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Jerry Anderson's UFO, that celebrated its 40th anniversary a couple days ago. It's always flying saucers. You can watch that Mythbusters video where they check out the mothership model from Close Encounters. Still basically a big salad mixing bowl, pretty much, I mean, all of these images that we have of extraterrestrials and aliens come from us. You know, it's our conception of what they are. And I whenever I watch things, I mean, look, even when you see movies like Independence Day or you see V, it's still things that are pretty much that we can grapple with, that we understand. It's based on our perceptions of technology and the universe around us, which I think is it's pretty silly to think that that's how it would go down. But maybe it would. I don't know. You know, maybe we were seeded like in Star Trek by the preservers throughout the galaxy, and any alien life forms are going to pretty much look like us. I mean, certainly we even draw aliens, whether it's the Greys or whatever other aliens that we're probing, Barney and Betty Hill, or anybody who says they have an encounter with an alien. They all kind of look the same, aside from the lizard people. You know, that's the one thing that gives me pause. Why do all aliens have to look basically like us, or variations on a theme? I don't know. And to that end, I got a letter here. From Franz M. Franz Morhart. Franz is a longtime member of the Post-Geek Singularity community. He is an imagination connoisseur just like you. He wrote me a letter in response to Monday's chat. I'm going to read it. Rob, alien species have been visiting Earth for thousands of years, according to Canada's former Defense Minister, Paul Hellyer, who discussed his beliefs once on Russia Today. Immediately an outlet we should always believe. On the television program, Hellyer said up to 80 different species of extraterrestrials regularly visit Earth from all over the galaxy, including from Venus, Mars, and Saturn's moon Andromeda, and other star systems. He further claimed to have personal knowledge of a species known as Nordic blondes and tall whites, who could almost pass as humans and who are working with the U.S. Air Force in Nevada. You know what? If there is really an alien species of Nordic blondes, what are they waiting for? When can I meet her? That's all I'm saying. I think they hire these Nordic blondes over at Fox News. What if I told you I have a small gray alien living in my house? He's a friendly little guy, talks to me in a language I don't understand, and as a gesture of friendship, he keeps my house mouse-free. In 5 words, Carl Sagan pointed out all that needs to be said about UFOs and extraterrestrials on Earth. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Paul Hellyer is one person with 0 evidence and impressive but irrelevant credentials. Lately, I've heard more than I can take about aliens. I've had people tell me with iron certainty that they know that UFOs exist and that the government has been keeping their existence secret from the world. Enough of this ridiculousness. I've never had much tolerance for so-called conspiracy theories, perhaps because so many believers in conspiracies will claim to base their groundless theories on evidence and a strict adherence to scientific principles. While it is true that conspiracy theorists often display incredible attention to detail when it comes to constructing a conspiracy in their minds, they display an even more incredible ability to ignore or brush aside details they don't like that contradict their theory, no matter how much evidence is against them. Hence the flat earthers. The passionate conspiracy theorist will argue with NASA, Nobel Prize winners, and every expert in the world, despite having fewer qualifications than the average fry cook. A real scientist is always conscious of how little they actually know, and they never attempt to correct a more qualified colleague, I think. That's what you meant to say. When a theory conflicts the evidence, the scientist rejects the theory. The conspiracy theorist rejects the evidence. Conspiracy theories are so contrary to the very core idea of what science actually is that to claim these ideas are in any way scientific is insulting to anyone who has ever studied science, as well as science enthusiasts like myself. My personal dislike of them, unfortunately, doesn't prevent others from believing in absurd conspiracies, though. A recent public policy poll revealed just how willing people are to believe in anything, no matter how bizarre or how little evidence there is to support it. According to the poll, a total of 37% of American voters believe global warming is a hoax. And even worse, 14% are so gullible that they believe in the existence of Bigfoot. Believing in aliens, I can understand at least. Due to the recent discovery of hundreds of planets outside of our solar system, most scientists think it's only a matter of time before a habitable, rocky, Earth-like twin is discovered. There was one just last week. And given the vastness of the universe and the number of possible undiscovered planets yet to be discovered, most scientists think it highly unlikely that human beings are the only life forms that exist. You can be a rational, sane person and still believe in aliens without contradicting known science. Man, I saw a video last night of some crazy translucent creature that I guess they found in the Arctic, and they didn't know what it was. They'd never seen it before. It's sort of a gelatinous thing. It looked like one of the aliens from Fantastic Planet, but it was clear. It was like when you got the clear exclusive from like KB Toys or something. The same cannot be said of UFOs, which tend to have mundane explanations that rule out the possibility of extraterrestrial spacecraft. For example, a recent video by Russell Crowe purporting capturing a UFO outside his office was likely reflected sunlight from a plane passing near sunset. While some believers have seemingly plausible stories, the volume of reports is staggering, and inevitably there are many deeply silly ideas about aliens. My personal favorites are cattle mutilation, abduction stories, and the ridiculous idea that aliens built the pyramids, which, by the way, was rejected by Gene Roddenberry, who always said humans built the pyramids because humans are awesome. Why would an advanced race of beings, they would have to be advanced to even travel to Earth, arrive here and then carve up cattle? Well, clearly, they like steaks. I don't know why that was never put forward. Everyone's talking about cattle mutilations. You know, if you're an alien, you've traveled a long way in your ship and you find some nice bovine, action on the ground, you carve yourself up a steak. No one's ever said that about cattle mutilations. Aliens got to eat. Black Angus beef, nicely marbled. Have they ever looked at the kind of cattle that was massacred and decided whether or not it would have made for good steaks? Because that would be my first go-to position on that. Why would they abduct people and probe them and then put them back again? If they've been doing these things, how have they managed to leave absolutely no evidence behind? All very good questions. The idea that aliens built the pyramids is especially annoying because it belittles our ancient civilizations. It is an arrogant modern view where people simply cannot believe that ancient cultures built those structures, so it must have been aliens. There have also been attempts to link aliens with the lost city of Atlantis. None of these ideas have any supporting evidence whatsoever. The simple fact is there is no reliable scientific evidence to support that we have been visited by aliens in the past, ever. And if you believe aliens have visited Earth and that a government has somehow kept this a secret from you, you believe in a conspiracy and you believe in mindless nonsense. Aliens do not visit Earth. If they ever do, I suspect we'll know all about it, and there has to be a decent chance they will exterminate us all for being assholes. There's nothing wrong with speculating about aliens. It's a fun topic, but people who claim to be an authority on the subject, people who classify alien races and talk about the visits as though they are unassailable fact, are annoying idiots. Of course, there's always the possibility that I'm an alien or a government stooge trying to throw them off the scent because their knowledge is so accurate. Franz M. Franz, I love that letter. And I love it when people comment on previous chats in cogent, fun letters to read like that. Here's the thing. I want to believe in conspiracies, because conspiracies then make me believe in the power of humanity to do cool shit. Like, I want to believe that there are enough people that can keep a secret in our social media age. And I want to believe that here's my problem with conspiracies. Because at the end of the day, it's always about money. And if it's always about money, and some people say it's about money and power too, but basically they're intertwined. What do money and power get you? Basically, you get to have sex with whoever you want. You get to perhaps buy faster cars and better clothes. What does being rich really give you? I mean, when you're really, really rich, it's not like you can go wherever you want. When you're really rich, you have to look over your shoulder all the time. You have to have guards. You get to run around in great circles and probably only drink the best champagne known to man. And look, don't get me wrong. If I had $1 billion, my life pretty much wouldn't change, except I'd have more Hot Toys figures. I'd live in a bigger house, but I would have a production slate of films going forward the next 15 years. That's what I would want to do. If I had lots of money, I would continue to work and make movies because that's what makes me happy. and I could make sure that I would be able to make them the way I wanted to make them, and I'd be able to hire the people I wanted to hire, and I'd be able to set real schedules that everybody would stick to, which is a novel idea working in the independent film world. But that's what, what does being rich, I mean, the whole idea when conspiracy theories, when it comes right down to it, even if you're a 9/11 truther, and you believe that whether it was, I don't think it was the government, but let's just say 9/11 theory, let's just say some black ops organization, because they blew up the Twin Towers. Everything was manufactured, and it was to get us into a war to make a bunch of people money. At the end of the day, it's so boring for me to believe that conspiracy theories are all about just money or power, because that's so provincial. That's so not cool. I mean, I would much prefer if, say, Al Pacino, like he's portrayed in The Devil's Advocate, if like the devil himself was manipulating all world events, so he was basically forcing people to eventually give up their souls so he could power hell, or however that works. That would be sort of interesting to me. But this idea that conspiracies always just come down to money. And, whenever I see all these people that are very, very wealthy, it's like they're not having as much fun as they should, or they're having fun at other people's expense. Like Jeffrey Epstein, human trafficking, guy had all this money, he had all this access, and he was building a weird temple on an island so he could have sex with underage girls. Really? Like, that's it? Like, I'd want to like travel, underage girls, I understand. But I'd want to like go places and do things and see things and go see operas. And if you always had a beautiful woman under your arm, why not go somewhere other than your weird temple that you constructed on your private island? I mean, if I was rich, I'd go to great restaurants. I'd drive cool cars. I'd wear bespoke suits made at Savile Row. I'd live. I wouldn't spend my life satisfying my carnal desires. I mean, sure, that might be a part of it. Wouldn't you want to do something or make something or create something or do something, live a life? When it comes down to aliens, I can't help but think about it. Here's another thing to think about. If there really are flying saucers or any kind of machine aided travel that is bringing extraterrestrial life to Earth, what do they get out of it? I mean, do they come here for amusement? Like sometimes maybe some 16-year-old alien in his hot rod spaceship that he's constructed is buzzing F-18s for fun. I mean, if you think about it, let's just assume sort of an anthropomorphized. One of my favorite things, by the way, in any movie is in AVP Requiem, Aliens versus Predator Requiem. I've talked about this on the show. Obviously, what happens in Alien versus Predator happens. And there's an emergency at the beginning of the movie, and ship crashes to Earth, alien escapes. So what happens? We see the Predator homeworld, and there's just a Predator, like a dude, and he's at work. He's in the Predator. I don't know. Maybe he's in the Predator suburbs. Maybe he's the equivalent of Predator San Diego, because if somebody's building, if you have a flying machine, you would assume that, okay, let's extrapolate that some alien civilization builds flying saucers. That probably also means they've got suburbs and like schools and the middle class, and they probably have elections. They're probably, if that's true, if they have flying machines and they travel around and visit places, and let's face it, the predators, we only see the predators hunting, which is like watching some dudes from the Midwest on a weekend furlough or leaving work to go hunt deer or something. That's basically what we're getting. But in the predator world, they're hunting human beings because they're more interesting than deer. They fight back. It's harder to do anything. So if you're like a predator, and you're on Earth hunting, that's all we've seen. Okay, but what about like, there's got to be a version of the Predator, The Office, right? Or the Predator Partridge Family. I mean, we think predators are awful looking, or I think they're cool looking, but they're with their way their mouths move, but the predators don't. They're just predators. They're just whatever they're called. We call them predators. They're probably called like Zictophogiae or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But I mean, think about it. They don't call themselves predators. And as I've said before, that's why I loved it when Diane Duane came up with a new name for the Romulans. We called them Romulans for whatever reason, but the Rihansu that was in her book, My Enemy, My Ally, the Rahansu, and then there's the Rahansu stories. I thought it was cool. Somebody probably heard the word Rahansu, and then we, bastardize it into Romans, Romulans, whatever. And if you think about it, these alien races would have to have civilizations pretty similar to ours. And that quickly demystifies them. I mean, we only even think about aliens in relation to the fact that they come from another planet, or they're here to either rape and pillage us, steal human beings for food, or steal our water, or steal our organs in the sense of UFO. They come down, they're a dying race, so they need to steal your heart, or they mutilate cattle. I mean, it's just such a fairly narrow way of looking at aliens. Even the Borg. I used 7 of 9, Jerry Ryan's Borg form as the thumbnail for this chat. I mean, even the Borg. Look, I'm going to say it right now. I love Star Trek: The Next Generation, but the Borg are stupid. They were cool in Q-Who, but basically somebody's like, yeah, you know what? What if we had alien cyborgs? Maurice Hurley, who created the Borg, probably not a big sci-fi fan, but hear the word cyborg, and I'm going to shorten it to Borg. And let's put down like conduit on their faces. The design of the Borg, I get it. They were made to be quickly created, and it looked great on screen. But I mean, the most ramshackle villains I've ever seen. You pull out one of those electrical conduits or whatever. Where are they? I get it. They're cool. They're to me, the Cybermen from Doctor Who are more technologically advanced than the Borg, really. I mean, when you start getting into nanotech and all that, it's pretty cool, I guess. But it was cool when the Borg are a hive mind. Then what'd you have to go do? The Borg were really cool. They're a hive mind because there is no central. You can't reason with them. You can't do anything with them. So what do the Borg do? The second time we see them, they need like a leader. They need an ambassador. They need somebody that can talk to mankind. Why would they even think that way? Second time the Borg appear in Star Trek: The Next Generation, they're demystified. Yeah, we got Locutus now. He's talking for us. He's our spokesperson. And then every time you see the Borg, they're more anthropomorphized. The Borg Queen, who's hot, by the way. Alex Kriega, hot. How great was it seeing her in Carnival Row as a witch? All the way back from Ghost Story to being a witch on Carnival Row, but she is always the Borg Queen. I mean, you think about it. Why would the Borg Queen be like this hot, leather-clad S&M goddess that, let's face it, man or woman or whatever gender you want to be, you fantasized about the Borg Queen. I know you did. I certainly did. I mean, I was thinking, wow, she comes apart. How could I put that to good use? I let me tell you, I thought of ways. There are ways. There are ways you could make the Borg Queen really work for you if you think about it. And I'm just like, that's, I just don't think aliens, all the aliens we've ever seen portrayed, all the aliens we want to believe in, the government conspiracies, it's all anthropomorphized. It's all humanocentric. We're so egomaniacal that we want to believe that aliens are somehow just like us. And if you think they're just like us, would we want to know them? I mean, what a nightmare. We can't even get our own act together. Can you imagine dealing with another civilization that basically, while they look different than us, they have the same problems as we do? Like, rolling back emission standards in the state of California for their flying saucers, not believing in global or alien-made global warming. I mean, the fact that I don't understand. We have one factory that is spewing particulate matter into the atmosphere means that we are changing the biosphere of the planet and not for the better. When you multiply that on a global scale with all industry, considering the runoff, everything, I would say there's probably consequences, but we don't want to believe that. Nah, it's not man-made. Nah. I've always said, you should leave. Try this as an experiment. Leave your kitchen 10% dirty for a year. 10% of all, just keep your dirty dishes, your garbage, whatever. Just keep 10% of your kitchen dirty and ask yourself, do the insects and the flies and the cockroaches and the smells, are those man-made? Or are those just that there's always been 10% dirt in this kitchen? So why do people not believe that? It's crazy. I don't know where I'm going with that. It's totally in another direction. But back to these aliens, man. 2 days. In 2 days, people are going to be at Area 51. They're going to be in the Nevada desert or the New Mexico desert, whichever side they're coming in on. Roswell, New Mexico, I guess. They're going to meet there. Is that their staging area? And they're going to look for aliens. I'm waiting. I think all of us are waiting. I mean, why is the government keeping this information from us? Because everybody would like, there's nobody that wouldn't like the fact that there are aliens. I'm saying it right now. Wouldn't you? You're all imagination connoisseurs. And if there are real aliens out there, you would like it as much as I would. You know you would. Don't lie. Everybody wants to see aliens. So why keep it a secret? Unless, you know, you're getting rich so you can hang out on someone's Beyonce's yacht. I mean, okay. I guess the reason you keep aliens rich, or you keep the knowledge of aliens away from the population, is for everything else. So you can get rich. You know, but what is that? I mean, I don't know. I think we all want to know that there are aliens. I'd like to think that. I certainly think that there are aliens, and I would like to know. So bring on the aliens. You know, if they're flying around F-18s, they're flying around our military, they're probably flying around other people's militaries too. So just reveal it. Let us deal with it. The sooner we can deal with aliens, the better off we are. Oscar season is rapidly approaching. I'd like to know there are aliens so I can concentrate more on the movies that are coming out. Ad Astra comes out this weekend. Looking forward to it. I'm seeing Star Trek: The Motion Picture tonight. That's right, people. That's right. JB Bonifacio is here. JB says, choosing between getting another Blink-182 album or proof of UFOs from Mark. JB says, choosing between getting another Blink-182 album or proof of UFOs from Mark DeLonge. Is it DeLonge? DeLonge is my Sophie's choice. JB, I'm right there with you. You know, I would prefer the knowledge of aliens. Movie Finobi is here. Movie Finobi, you haven't been here for a while. Good to see you. Rob, I like the title and movie Aliens. Live long and prosper. I love aliens. I love Alien. I love aliens. I think they're great. Alan Sachs says UFOs are classified planes they can't admit exist. Hey, one of my favorite book series that I love to read, and one's coming up soon, Jonathan Mayberry's Joe Ledger series about the Department of Military Science. Actually, there's a great book. They dealt with alien technology in one of that book. You got to read that book. If you want to read a great book series, start with the first one. Read the Joe Ledger books by Jonathan Mayberry. They're great. Sujith says that UFOs are Vulcan probes looking for warp signatures. That could very well be. Maybe first contact day is coming much sooner than we thought. Rather, we don't have to wait, another 30 or plus years. Mukbang Review says, PGS tithe. Well, thank you, Mukbang Review. I really appreciate that. Where do you stand on aliens? Also, check out the Netflix trailer for a series called Raising Dion. It's produced by Michael B. Jordan, who appears in it. The story is of a child who displays powers and abilities. That's cool. Raising Dion. There's another really interesting show coming on, or it's a movie coming on Netflix called In the Shadow of the Moon. I watched the trailer for. Very excited to see that. I think you imagination connoisseurs of this, the Post-Geek Singularity, would be interested in the new Netflix show In the Shadow of the Moon. I guess it's a movie. Dan V900 says, I don't want to derail the conversation, and this should be a topic for another day, but Mediaversity is RT certified. That frankly makes me angry. Film criticism is becoming a joke when that's allowed. Mediaversity is this ridiculous website that Swag Props brought to my attention that judges and reviews how much woke diversity there is in movies. And it's just silly. Their latest review of Chernobyl says there's not enough people of color in it. They make the point that, well, if you can have people speak with British accents, which isn't accurate, then we should have a lot more people of color, even though there weren't people of color in the story that they're telling. Amazing. And I agree with you, Dan V900. To be Rotten Tomatoes certified is stupid. That is a really dumb way to look at movies. And it's interesting. They do cover foreign films, but it's so strange. Like, you're going to talk about how woke Chinese cinema is. You're going to talk about how woke Indian cinema is, based on which criteria? Your criteria? I hate it. Willow Yang says, would you want to have the gift that, this is a good question, actually. I would expect nothing less of our lovely Willow Yang. She says, would you want to have the gift that aliens gave Amy Adams in Arrival? Do you want to know what happens in your future? Yes, but I would want to know, I would also want to know if time, is it immutable? So like if what's going to happen, I can't change it. It would always be interesting to know what's going to happen in your future so you could change it and make it hopefully for the better. Because, if I could have my own sports almanac in my head and no one knew that there was a sports almanac and I could bet the ponies, I could use my winnings to bet the lottery and win lots of money. And then I could still, what would I do with a lot of money? I'd hire all my friends, start a production company and make more movies and television. That's what I would do. I'd also buy a bigger house for all of us and buy more toys. But, that's just me. But yes, I absolutely, most powers that are depicted in movies and television, I pretty much would like to have. By the way, back to that Predator and AVP, Requiem. I mean, that poor guy, just a workaday Predator, has to go to Earth and clean up a mess. Can you imagine being that dude? But it said a lot about the Predator society. There's a lot going on that tells you a lot about Predator society. It's very much like human society. I mean, I want to know what it's like, what are Predator, do they have proms? Can you graduate summa cum laude from college? Do you play football? Do they have like the equivalent? I mean, if you hunt, do you fish? Do Predators fish? I don't know. I do want to know. These questions, they vex me. I'm terribly vexed. This Lynn Hobday from Hope. I said it once right. I think it's Hobday. Or is it Hobday? Lynn Hobday? Lynn wrote from Japan. Now, Lynn is a musician. She's a singer. She's an arranger. She is an expat from England, from the UK, and she lives in Japan. And there's that Gundam figure I told her about that's sold out here. The new Gundam. I want it bad. Lynn says, Dear Rob, hi there. It's Lynn from Japan. Great to hear about the unboxing event and very glad to know my package arrived safely. For those who don't know, for people who've sent me things to the Iowa P.O. Box, Mike Bodden basically is the webmaster, and the P.O. Box for me is in Iowa. Mike is coming out here next week and everything. I guess you guys have sent me some stuff. So I'm going to have an unboxing event next week live, hopefully in the Imaginarium, and the new set with Mike Bodden, and we're going to open everything people have sent me. So if you sent me things, we're going to open it all live here, and you can see. And by the way, I think if you want to send me something, there's a little bit of time left. I'm not trolling for gifts. I'm just saying if there's something you want to send me, there's still time. Have been lucky enough or been getting up early enough to hear your chats live recently. I'm normally working on the computer, but really your shows are always music to my ears. And that, for a musician, that's very nice to hear. And help me maintain my enthusiasm and gratitude for being involved in entertainment and imbue me with the determination to keep slogging away. It's nice to hear that. It's been particularly fun listening to you talk about Hammer Horror, a great British institution. I have never seen the original Quatermass movies, but the TV miniseries of 1979 scared the wits out of me when I was growing up. Have you ever seen it? It starred John Mills in the titular role, and I still have a dog-eared copy of the novelization at home. It was pretty grim in a Torchwood Children of Earth kind of a way, and involved young people making pilgrimages to stone circles only to be harvested by aliens. I haven't seen it in years, but I can still recall the terror I felt watching it for the first time. I probably only watched it once, but Space 1999's Dragon's Domain episode gave me nightmares. So good. Much appreciation again for your musings on literary science fiction. I used to belong to a science fiction book club too and read voraciously. In fact, I spent a great deal of time worrying about the end of the world, be it from Tripods, War of the Worlds, Triffids, giant walking plants, and Day of the Triffids that make everybody blind, or from worldwide flooding brought on by an alien invasion, the Kraken wakes. Anyway, I'll keep it short today. All the best, Lynn H. Well, Lynn H., once again, you and I, we park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay. Yes, for those of you who don't know, there was a BBC miniseries written by Nigel Neal again, Quatermass. I think it's also known as the Quatermass Conclusion, if memory serves, and it's on Blu-ray. It's like 4 or 5 parts or something. Maybe it's 4 parts. I liked it, but it's very steeped in the late 70s. And plot-wise, it is a little murky. But like you said, if I always talk about how Torchwood Children of Earth is 5 of the best hours of science fiction television of the last 20 years, and I'd never seen an episode of Torchwood when I watched it. I mean, I knew Captain Jack because I have a man crush on John Barrowman, but I had not seen any of Torchwood till I watched Children of Earth, and frankly, I was blown away. I've told the story before, but I put it on. I put the first episode on. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. I had to be at work at like 8 or 9. And I watched the whole thing. I watched all 5 hours. I watched it from 1 to 6. And man, I loved it. Euros Lyn directed. So good. I mean, it's so good. And it's really diabolical. And, I like things where the threat becomes more and more and more dire, because that has a dire threat in it. If you haven't seen Children of Earth, Torchwood Children of Earth, it's very Quatermassy. But yes, and you really should. I mean, I keep saying Quatermass, the Quatermass Experiment, Quatermass 2. Quatermass Experiment was 55, Quatermass 2 is 57, and Quatermass in the Pit, or 5 Million Years to Earth as we knew it over here, was 67. It was 10 years later. What's interesting is we, as Americans, we never got the Quatermass movies under the original titles. I don't think we even got Quatermass 2. Quatermass 1 was The Creeping Unknown. Quatermass and the Pit was 5 Million Years to Earth. I don't know what Quatermass 2 was in the United States off the top of my head. Somebody will have to find out for me. But yes, and the Quatermass conclusion, very interesting. I bought it. I first saw it because I bought the import DVDs, but I've never replaced them with Blu-rays, which I should, now that I'm on sort of a Quatermass kick. But Quatermass is pretty old too, if I recall. He's very old in the show, if I remember. I think. So this is a funny letter. Let me see what you guys are saying first of all in the chat. But I don't know. Aliens get me all giddy. I love talking about them. Koba is here. Koba says, "My kitchen is always dirty." Well, Koba, you're a primate. You can't be expected to keep that clean of a house. I understand. I know where you're coming from, but that's damn funny. Stubble McShave says, thoughts on Talks remaking The Princess Bride. Okay. The Princess Bride's based on a novel. And there have been many novels like, Pride and Prejudice that have been remade many times. The Great Gatsby, another novel, been remade. I mean, The Thing, based on a short story, Who Goes There, has been, well, if you include the prequel, I'd say it's a remake, whatever, 3 times. If somebody, here's what's really interesting to me, I guess as a film fan, when we have things that are sacrosanct, or we have things that are holy, and the alchemy was there. And I've always said that movies have a certain alchemy to them. There's a magic to film, and it's everybody's contributions work together to create a wondrous experience. And I don't care. I don't believe that there are actors in the world today that when you put them all together, that there are the equivalent of the actors at the points in their career that they were, and the kind of sensibility that the director brought to it, and the man who wrote the novel, adapting the book for the screenplay. All of those things, all of the alchemy that made The Princess Bride what it was, I don't think it's there. Now, remakes are fine if somebody has an interesting new take on them. Like, that's what I like. I like to see, look, Shakespeare's The Tempest, remade as Forbidden Planet, or adapted as a science fiction film. That to me is interesting. But The Princess Bride is one of the great movies of the 80s. And it's one of the most delightful films of the period. It's beloved by everyone. It's rediscovered by new generations. Heck, they even referenced it in Once Upon a Deadpool this past year. And so why? I mean, I don't I understand. I mean, I understand, but the idea is I just don't get why all the time and effort and money and abilities and all the things that are sunk into a movie, why would you want to go remake The Princess Bride when The Princess Bride is already so great and wonderful and so beloved? Like, why? I mean, if somebody wants to do it, that's fine. But, you know, I mean, I look at these, a lot of the remakes we're getting, especially of science fiction films, RoboCop and Total Recall, two Paul Verhoeven movies, just didn't work. Because both Total Recall and RoboCop work because of the sensibilities of director Paul Verhoeven. Now, that's not to say you can't go reimagine a story. I mean, the Thing from Another World is a very different story than John Carpenter's The Thing, because they went back to the source material, the short story Who Goes There. But you know, when I read about this, I'm like, of all the things that you can make, I've got 20 projects I want to make, new projects that I know would be good. Some of them I think could be classics. Why would you? I mean, the idea that why would you want to do something where immediately you're going to be compared and contrasted with something beloved that's already been made? Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you want to spend all that time and effort remaking another film? Well, I know it's about money. Maybe we're going to make a lot of money. I don't think you will. I don't think a Princess Bride remake is going to burn up the charts the way, say, The Lion King did. I don't think so. But on the other hand, people got to eat. You know, if somebody wants to invest the money and that's what they want to spend, it's so hard to get a movie financed. If somebody's going to finance a Princess Bride remake, I wouldn't say no to working on something like that. If somebody hired me and said, Rob, you know, we want you to edit this movie. All right. I wouldn't say no. Like, you can't besmirch the original memory of The Princess Bride. I'd look upon it as I look upon everything else, as a creative challenge. Try and make it the best it can be. I think it's needless from this perspective, from where I'm sitting right now, but perhaps somebody knows something I don't. Timula the Spider Monkey is here. Timula says, was listening to music on my phone when the alert for this chat popped up. The song I was listening to, Verisimilitude by Teenage Fan Club. Weird. No, not weird. I made that happen. I am, after all, the viceroy of Verisimilitude. You have no idea how far my grasp reaches, all the way down under. That's how far it goes. Jedi Koth says, on the subject of Alien, do you have the Kane or Dallas Hot Toys figures? I still regret not grabbing one of those. Why, yes, I do. I have both of them. What Jedi Koth is referring to are the Kane and Dallas Hot Toys figures. And what's really interesting, when they were making Alien figures back then, they made Alien and Aliens figures. They made Ripley and the Space Marines from Aliens, and they made Kane and Dallas from Alien. And interestingly enough, they did not have the likeness rights to the actors when they did the figures. So Kane actually comes with a head that has a mustache. It doesn't look like Kane at all. So you swap it out for the melted, the face hugger that's melted through his helmet. What's really great about the Dallas figure, which I have on display, is not in this case though, is that it's a great recreation of the Alien spacesuits. Those are figures I wish they would redo now. I don't know how many people would buy them, but they are great Hot Toys figures. I love those Hot Toys figures. I had all the Marines, the Space Marines, but they were in my storage locker when I had a unfortunate event. Koba says, there's also a Quatermass series from 1953 with Reginald Tate predating the movies. That is true. There was also radio plays and a series. That is completely true. I do not have that series. I think you can see it on YouTube, though. I've never watched it. Willow Yang says, I've never seen a full episode of Friends either. See, it's not just me. Our brilliant Willow Yang, hashtag queen of the Post-Geek Singularity. She hasn't seen Friends either. Timbula the Spider Monkey says, I have unfortunately seen an episode of Friends. Listen, you know what? Here's what I don't like. I don't like all this retroactive hate and people going back and talking about how unwoke Friends is. It's so stupid. Friends is a product of its time. A lot of people loved it. It was a #1 show. It's definitely a zeitgeist show. And if you want a window into American culture at a certain time, Friends is a way to go. I mean, a lot of people don't like it, and I know it's really fashionable to hate on it now. But you know, those characters were indelible and they were ingrained into American consciousness for a long time. And you know, I might know nothing about Jennifer Aniston's character on Friends. I certainly knew her haircut. I certainly dated a lot of girls with a Jennifer Aniston haircut. And I know who Phoebe is, you know, Monica. So, yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with Friends. This letter comes from Ken Dixon. I like this letter. Dear Rob, I'm curious to know if you've ever experienced a movie that was so bad that you wanted to walk out before it was over. This has happened to me on 2 different occasions. One was Batman and Robin, and the other, I hate to say it, was Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. I wanted to leave the theater within the first 5 minutes of both movies. Batman and Robin, with an opening sequence fighting Mr. Freeze playing a bizarre game of ice hockey, was a far cry from what The Dark Knight should be. Star Trek V had Kirk, McCoy, and Spock camping in the movie's opening. When they started singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat, I considered finding the nearest escape pod or shuttlecraft to leave the final frontier. However, I really couldn't leave. I don't like to make snap judgments, and I'm eternally hopeful that quality storytelling will shine through. Also, these were characters that I loved, so no matter how bad it might have seemed early on, I had to see it through. Sadly, there was absolutely no good that would come from George Clooney's Batman, and it single-handedly killed the superhero genre until we got X-Men. For crying out loud, they actually showed him using a Batman credit card, if my scarred memory is holding true. I might give a slight edge to Star Trek V for having some redeeming qualities, but it ended as poorly as it began, with our 3 Starfleet legends singing the same lame song on yet another camping trip. I get the attempt to bookend the movie and juxtapose the simplicity of camping with the adventure of space, but good grief, it just put on an exclamation point on my feelings for the movie. Knowing how you feel about our beloved Trek, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this directorial effort by Mr. Shatner, and if there have been movies that you've nearly or actually left due to your initial experience. Thank you, as always, for reading my letter. May you and the Post-Geek Singularity live long and prosper. Cheers, Ken D. I have walked out of 1 movie in my entire life, and that movie is Shock Treatment, the pseudo-sequel, the Richard O'Brien pseudo-sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I hated it. I mean, and you know what's really interesting? The reason that I walked out was I literally was having a physiological reaction to this movie. Like, normally I've watched movies that I didn't think were very good, but I've watched them. I've watched movies slow as molasses at film festivals. I've watched films that I upon first glance, I really didn't like Philip Ridley's. Is it Philip Ridley's The Reflecting Skin, which I later went back and was like, oh, I like this. When I first saw it, I didn't like it. But Shock Treatment, I really hated. And it got to the point where I was so annoyed by the movie, about everything in it, that I was having this physiological, I was getting nauseous. I hated it so much. So I'm like, I can't take this. And I left. Never seen it since. You can't. Here's a Burnett axiom. The second Burnett axiom. The first one is, of course, never put your universe before your characters or your story. The second Burnett axiom is, you can't set out to make a cult movie. If you are sitting down and you are trying to make a cult movie, you have lost. You can't make a cult happen around your film. It has to happen naturally. You have to go make your movie, but you can't set out to make a cult film. And I feel there's many movies that set out to immediately be cult movies. And, sometimes it works. Most of the time it doesn't. But I hate that. I hate that you're self-consciously trying to appeal to what your audience is going to gravitate towards. That should be inherent in your material. You can't set out to make a cult film. The Rocky Horror Picture Show became a cult sensation for various reasons, which I won't get into now, but it was the culture, it was the way it spoke to certain people. And another movie, a movie that I dearly love that's taken from a stage play, but it was recently released on Blu-ray, which I would call a cult film now, is Hedwig and the Angry Inch. And you watch that. I love Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and I think when you watch the film, it's very apparent why both the movie and the stage play became such a hit, and has been performed all over the world with different actors bringing their stylings to Hedwig. And I think that you can't force it. So that's the only movie I ever walked out of. There were movies. I remember the first R-rated movie I saw in the theater was Exorcist II: The Heretic, and I was really I hadn't seen The Exorcist yet. I hadn't seen The Exorcist, and I'd heard, obviously, it was this notorious movie that in 1970, when it came out in 74, 73, 74, and I was hearing radio ads for it. My parents wouldn't take me. They're like, "There's no way you're going to see The Exorcist." I didn't see it until the week I turned 13 years old. And then I finally saw it because I had the video cassette of it. But I remember watching Exorcist 2 and thinking, what is this garbage? What am I watching? What is this? What? And any mystique that The Exorcist or the had in my mind was swept away by Exorcist II: The Heretic. However, by the time I got to the end of the film, I remember, because my brother Jim had taken me. I have a half brother. My dad was married before he married my mom, so my brother Jim had taken me, and when it was over, he hated it. But I'm like, was that anything like The Exorcist? He's like, no. But by the end of the movie, I actually thought it was strangely. I was annoyed by it, but by the time I got to the end, it got so weird, and I kind of understood where it was going, that I actually didn't hate it, but I wanted to walk out. As far as Star Trek V goes, Star Trek V is wildly uneven. I think Shatner, there was a studio mandate to make it funnier. They cut the budget. The effects, Bran Farron bamboozled Paramount and Shatner and Ralph Winner into going with him to do the visual effects as opposed to ILM again. They were trying to save money. I mean, I think the story could have been sound. And I like the idea of them camping and spending time in the wilderness. We'd never seen anything like that before, but singing the row, row, row your boat. Even when I was at summer camp, we never sang row, row, row your boat. I mean, I went to summer camp from the time I was like 6 to the time I was 15, and we'd sing like One Tin Soldier from Billy Jack. Listen, children, to a story that was written long ago, about a kingdom on the mountain and the valley far below. On the mountain was a treasure buried deep beneath a stone, and the valley people swore they'd have it for their very own. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. You know that song? We'd sing that at summer camp. We didn't sing row, row, row your boat. There you go. I'm probably going to get demonetized now because I sang One Tin Soldier, and who knows who owns that song. That would actually be kind of funny. But they sang it at the Flying Horseshoe Ranch, which also had a song. In Cleellum, Washington, there is a Grand Ranch down in Teanaway Valley where deer and elk are playing right near my front door. Oh, how I wish I was there again down in Teanaway Valley where my lonely heart will trouble me no more. I mean, once you sing campfire songs at summer camp, they're ingrained into your brain forever. And you, ladies and gentlemen, you just got 2. So you never know what you're going to get with Robservations. You just never know. But yeah, I mean, I think Star Trek V is wildly uneven. I think the story's interesting. I really like all the stuff about let go of your pain. I need my pain. I think all of that is great. But, Shatner did some really interesting things with the camera work and stuff, but it's just so wildly uneven. And Shatner, again, the actors in Star Trek don't know very much about the canonical in-universe stuff that's happening. They know the scenes as actors and what they're playing, and they get what they're doing, but the wider aspects of the Star Trek universe are, have never been something they need to understand. Because when an actor's playing a scene, he's playing the scene in front of him. He doesn't need to know what all 79 episodes were about in context. I've explained this a lot on the show. When I was interviewing Brent Spiner for the Next Generation Blu-rays, he flat out said, I don't watch Star Trek. He told us he'd never seen an episode all the way through. And I believed him because even when I was working on Femme Fatales, when I would finish an episode and I directed the episode and edited the episode and sent it off, mixed the episode. When it was done, there was no reason for me to watch it again. Like, I don't sit and watch Free Enterprise all the time. I haven't watched Free Enterprise in years. I used to watch it with people that would ask to see it, but when you work on something, you just don't pay much attention to it. So, the actors, they don't ever experience movies and television the way we do as fans. They just will, and they'll never quite understand all of that. So, and I think in Shatner's mind, he made some good scenes. He did some good scenes. I don't know if they really hung together for fans, but I think Star Trek V is, again, a movie that has a lot of good ideas. I think the execution is weak, but it's compromised on a number of different levels. And I don't think you can just blame Shatner. I think Shatner and his DP do some really interesting things. Batman and Robin is pretty much irredeemably bad because that is a movie that has no verisimilitude at all. And you want to grab onto something. You want to grab onto something that's real that you can believe in. Oh, but there's nothing there. There's nothing in that movie. I mean, the way that Tim Burton, you might not have dug Anton Furst's production designed Gotham City or his approach, but he's clearly creating a universe and a world that's his world. And you believe in the world that he's presenting to you, whereas Batman and Robin immediately starts and you're like, what is this? Why am I watching this? It's terribly bad. I mean, it's awful. But I think that was a great letter, and thank you for sending it in. I enjoyed that letter. That was a good letter. Marvel Diesel. Is it DC? Is that a play on DC? But Marvel Diesel says, Ridley Scott movies have some of the best extra features. What other directors have good special features? Thanks, love the show. Well, I'll tell you, the reason Ridley Scott DVDs or Blu-rays have great extra features is because many of them were done by my buddy Charlie de Lauzirika. Charlie is one of the great auteurs when it comes to DVD and Blu-ray special features. I mean, his work on the Alien movies, of course, the Blade Runner box set might be the definitive for one movie. It's incredible. It's right up there, and everything Charlie worked on for Black Hawk Down, Kingdom of Heaven. I mean, great stuff. And that's Ridley Scott really was allowed Charlie to document his career very, very well. If I can toot my own horn, for a while I worked for Bryan Singer, and I think our Usual Suspects special edition, the special edition stuff's never come out on Blu-ray, but the Usual Suspects documentary we did, X-Men 1.5, X2, and Superman Returns, I think are all very, very good. The Lord of the Rings discs, of course, are very, very good. Curdy Peller and Michael Pellerin produced that stuff. That stuff is amazing. Great material. There's a lot of I'm trying to think of other. Superman the movie has some really good stuff on it. I mean, I would, if you're interested, like off the top of my head, because I produced DVD special features for 25 years, for 15 years. And there's a lot of great work out there. Speaking of good, since I brought it up, the Hedwig and the Angry Inch, the Criterion disc ports over the New Line special features from that disc. Great. The Hedwig documentary is great. And even if you're not interested in Hedwig, just as in terms of how it came about and how it happened, wow, really, really good documentary. I just rewatched that. You know what else I rewatched that was pretty cool? I mean, there's so many great little documentaries. There's half-hour documentaries, but I watched, because I finally got a disc that played, even though it was on. I showed you the Arrow rollerball disc. I have the Twilight Time rollerball disc, which now I can get rid of. So I don't know if anybody's interested in rollerball disc, and you want to donate something to the cause or whatever. Twilight Time rollerball disc, cheap. But there's a great documentary on that disc that I forgot about. But those are just off the top of my head. Those are some good. Ridley Scott. Also, of course, Peter Jackson's King Kong, another great disc. Peter Jackson. The best Blu-rays and DVD special features were always because of the director. The directors allowed them to happen. Michael Bay. There's some great stuff on Michael Bay discs. David Fincher has some really great, maybe if the documentaries aren't great, there's always some technical features about how things were done on his discs, but he's got some great special features out there. Big fan of what he's done. But yeah, there's if you just Google, one of my favorite documentaries that was ever done for home video is Under Pressure, Making the Abyss. That's on that DVD, but I think you can find it on YouTube. I hope they port it over. It's amazing. I don't think a documentary would ever have been made today. And of course, another great disc. I hate to say it again because I mention it all the time, but the Apocalypse Now packages, especially the new 4K disc, Apocalypse Now Final Cut that came out, has the great, wasn't directed by Eleanor Coppola, but it used her footage. One of the great documentaries on the making of movies. I mean, there's a couple of documentaries that I love. That one, Hearts of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse. There's a great documentary on the making of Cleopatra, believe it or not. That's really worth seeing. I think it's called Behind the Planet of the Apes is another great documentary. But, in terms of you're asking specifically about directors. But yeah, the Coppola stuff is always good. Well, not always good. It's good on that. The Filmmaker's Apocalypse, Under Pressure. Also, Lost in La Mancha, about Terry Gilliam trying to make the first incarnation of that film, of his Tilting at Windmills movie. That's good stuff. I mean, there's a lot. I should make a list. I should make a list of my favorite DVD special features or Blu-ray special features. Topher Rocks is here. Topher Rocks says, "Hey, Rob, off topic, but the Black Mirror episode San Junipero is one of the most beautiful love stories I've ever seen. Probably my favorite episode. San Junipero is an amazing episode of Black Mirror. I adored it. I think it is fantastic. And I agree with you. It is amazing. I think it's great. Mark C. I don't know if Mark C is in the chat today, but I got another letter from Mark C talking about, again, following up from my Sunday chat about Rotten Tomatoes. So Mark C, Mark Chure, a long-time imagination connoisseur, a man who I've come to know and love. Mark Chure, who's always supported the channel, been very generous with his support. He also writes pretty good letters. Here is another one. Greetings, Rob. I wanted to add to the discussion about Rotten Tomatoes and how John Campia's statement of just looking at the critics' reviews may be a backwards idea, or worse yet, the website is simply rotten to the core. Back before Captain Marvel's release, Rotten Tomatoes allowed you to post whether or not you were simply interested in a film. The audience aggregate gave Captain Marvel a 29%. It was believed that this was due to toxic fans bombing the score. No one ever bothered to ask, is it accurate? Had Larson's delivery of her message turned off that many people? Now, this was a toxic fan bombing, or many like me changed their minds and saw it anyway, or a bit of both. Still, this could not have been known when the number was removed. Afterwards, the site posted reviews for the film, mostly positive. If you bothered to look at the reviews as I did, at one point there were over 40 critic reviews, all of which said the same thing. Not paraphrased, but absolutely verbatim. If fans corrupted the audience side, bots were used to corrupt the critics side. Once discovered and YouTubers' videos were made, the critics' score dropped substantially and the reviews disappeared. Fast forward to Rotten Tomatoes reviews of Dave Chappelle's special Sticks and Stones, and the current documentary on Representative AOC knocked down the house. The Chappelle special is currently running a 99% audience score, but a 31% critic score. While the AOC documentary's current critic score is 100% and the audience score sits at 17%. The numbers themselves are jarring, but diving deeper, you find critics that seem to not only promote the current woke cancel culture ideal, but will downvote entertainment that goes against the narrative. Matt Stone has recently said some critics feel they had to give Chappelle a negative review for fear of losing their jobs. I read that today, actually. Both of these are political in nature, but at some point, the question needs to be asked. Is this a fair critical review, or is this members of cancel culture promoting their ideals, turning entertainment into propaganda? Now, take the preview showings of Rian Johnson's new film, Knives Out. Currently, this film sits at a critic rating of 100%. If you go past the number and read the reviews, many seem to enjoy the whodunit aspects of the film. This would have been enough for me to see the film until I read things like Knives Out review, Rian Johnson's hugely entertaining whodunit offers sharp takedown of white entitlement. Most reviews I've read make reference to Johnson's not-so-subtle commentary on 2019 America. While I believe such commentary was attempted almost subconsciously in Star Wars The Last Jedi and dislike it being in a Star Wars film, here it's all Johnson. While I personally have no interest in Knives Out, I'm glad he has a proper forum to speak on issues that concern him. My problem is with the reviews that seem to litter mainstream media, reviews that seem to bow to cancel culture no matter whether the film is good or bad, but how well it does carrying forth the ideology. So who does one listen to? The critics who really do seem to have an agenda, or the audience who might have an agenda to lean in the opposite direction? How about neither? Should I trust John Campea, the man who thinks Stallone's Oscar is comedy genius? For heaven's sake, no, no, no. I listen to Jeremy Jahns, Chris Stuckman, and Grace Randolph. All three approach film from a different perspective, yet their sensibilities seem to be similar enough that if all three agree, it's a good movie. If they disagree, majority rules. But Rotten Tomatoes, just plain rotten. Mark C. Well, Mark, another good letter. Thank you for that letter. You know, I have to say, I know that Chris Stuckman was around the Collider offices or Schmodown. I don't remember ever meeting him, but I really like Chris Stuckman, I guess as a person. I don't know him as a person, but he seems like somebody I would like. I really like him, and I like him as a person. I like his demeanor. I really like his reviews, and I like how he approaches film criticism. I have nothing but love for Chris Stuckman, and I really enjoy going back and delving into his classic reviews and looking. He's one of those guys, I'll go back and deep into his YouTube channel, and I'll watch his old stuff just to see what he thought. I really like that guy. Of course, I love Jeremy Jahns. I've known Jeremy Jahns. You know, I owe Jeremy Jahns a Hot Toys figure, to be honest. One of the great things I think about both Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Jahns is they're astute film viewers, they're educated film viewers, and yet they kind of are the everyman. They're not coming at it from some highfalutin, here I'm on critical Mount Olympus, and let me anoint you with my knowledge. They're not that way at all. They're real people, but they have a passionate film interest, and they have a wide range of knowledge, and I like them both. Grace Randolph, I don't watch. Let's just say I don't watch Grace. I watch some of the things that she says, actually, and I really appreciate what she's done in her career. She's not just a YouTuber, and but I think she's kind of, I think of her as the same ilk. So listening to Jeremy Jahns, Chris Stuckman, and Grace Randolph, I think is actually a great cross section. I understand why you do, and that makes sense to me. I don't tend to watch a lot of YouTubers who review new movies. You know, I really don't. I read trade reviews, and that's about it. And from there, I infer things about movies. But I do like to watch a lot. That's why I like to watch Critical Drinker, sort of after the fact. Mahler, I love watching Mahler's reviews. But you know, what's really starting to sort of, I guess, get me down about the movie space, especially the nerd space that I exist in, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, things that I have an inordinate interest in. I mean, you know, you don't see, there's occasionally somebody will go back and do a piece on Stalker. Like somebody did a making of piece on Tarkovsky's Stalker that I watched. I don't remember who did it, but I thought it was really good. I'm like, wow, this is really good. A lot of information. It was researched well. And again, I've talked about the guy who does a song, Ideas of Ice and Fire. Really like his channel. People that are pretty educated about their subject and are thoughtful and take deep dives. That's why, I mean, Mahler, as much as, you know, he rages against the machine, there's a lot of great stuff there. There's a lot of great stuff. And, you know, but when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes, look, I think I'm tired of watching things that are so polarizing about agendas, because this idea, like you say, whether it's subconscious or not, people are not making movies to inject their political biases into them. Sure, they're obviously injecting their political biases into the movies they're making, but that's not the only reason they're doing it. Everybody's trying to tell a great story and make a great movie. What's interesting to me is that it always comes down to Brie Larson making comments that, by the way, I agreed with. Look, based on my own YouTube analytics, and God love the women that come here, whether it's Lynn, whether it's Vesna, whether it's Willow, and there's a lot of others that are coming that I'm seeing more. Kathy, there's people that are here more often, but 98% of my audience is men. And I, one of the things that I like when I see women come to this channel and hang out in the chat rooms is that they feel that they're welcome, that they're safe. They don't get, I don't know, if Vesna's, you're sending Vesna dick pics over there in Sarajevo, something tells me, maybe she might think that's funny, but I don't want to speak for you, Vesna, but I would hope not. And I think that, but I know that the nerd space is still a male dominated space. It's changing, but it does bum me out that 98% of my audience is male. That doesn't say that I don't love my male audience. That's not what I'm saying at all. And I think what Brie Larson was saying, everybody takes her, like, I don't get butthurt when somebody says those kinds of things. I mean, if I were to say, it'd be nice to have more of a female audience, only because what do I always say? Every person you meet has something that has a story to tell you haven't heard, or they have something to say that you haven't considered. I mean, and when I talk about diversity, the reason that I like diversity is because people that are coming from different economic backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different gender backgrounds, different sexual beliefs or sexual proclivities or religious beliefs, everybody who is coming from these different areas bring more to the party. They bring more points of view that I want to hear. And it's like, okay, I get it. I don't like to see agenda-based when an agenda becomes front and center in a story. It's really distracting. I don't like to be preached to. Stories should have that built into them. If you want to have a woke agenda, your story should inherently be like I thought Fast Color, even though it's produced by a white guy and his white wife, Jewish wife, but they're telling the story of a multi-generational family of black women that have superpowers. And I thought that was really interesting. It was done in a different way. And like I talked about yesterday, going and watching Friday the 13th movies or slasher movies with predominantly black audiences brought me a newfound respect of a cultural difference that I later found out was attributed, at least the way I saw it, as going to church. The way black audiences go to the way worshipers, black audience, predominantly black churches, as opposed to white churches. And it wasn't until I went to a Southern Baptist church that was predominantly black that I had this revelation, like, oh, all the way down to church, it's a participatory thing. It's call and response. Well, white churches weren't like that, at least the ones that I'd been in. Certainly not the synagogues that I'd grown up going to on Sunday school and, and high holy days, No one, every time the cantor sings or the rabbi says something, you don't have the congregation, yes, sing it or preach it. But there was something to be said for that. And, you see those cultural differences, and when they come in and they just add to the tapestry of what you know. That's why I like people. Everybody's different. I like people everywhere you go. I mean, there's interesting things to be gleaned. And like I've said, from the most part, wherever I've gone, I've found people to be pretty neat. I like people. And, the more people, the more differences, the more backgrounds, the more things you can share, the better off. And I find it, we are going through a period of time now where a lot of people that didn't have voices, I mean, look, women have had to put up with sexual abuse from men for 10,000 years. I mean, forever. I think that probably 75% of the women that I've known in my entire life, throughout my life, have had some kind of sexual abuse or some kind of abuse. And it's unfortunate, but true. So we're going through a period of time where voices are being able to rise up and culture is changing. And I think that's ultimately for the good thing. It's all going to be for the betterment of human society in the long run. It's just we're living through a time when people now have voices and they're shouting and they're reveling in their power, and there are things that had to happen. And so, I think it's really stupid that where what I can't stand is that when Dave Chappelle, who is clearly being a provocateur, you need to be smart. I understand that people are like, well, Dave Chappelle, he's not kind. He's not being kind in his special. And what he's doing, it's too provocative, and it's too loud. It's too discordant to my way of thinking. And I'm like, yeah, but by design. I mean, what Dave Chappelle wanted to do is exactly what he set out to do. And I would say that from that perspective, I mean, this idea, I don't think Dave Chappelle's an unkind person. And so when the people are going after, I mean, it's such a weird thing to me that you go after people. Like, I wouldn't think to go after people, think about what they're presenting and have it start a conversation. I think now, look, I've watched fan culture. It's like Captain Marvel. Was Captain Marvel the best Marvel movie? No. But I haven't read hardly any reviews where it's reviewed for its own sake. Where people, there are very few reviews, especially in our space, especially in the imagination connoisseur space, where anybody is writing any cogent criticism of The Last Jedi. Or, I mean, I've watched a lot of cogent criticism about Force Awakens and Last Jedi that are very good examples of why those movies come up short. I've seen a lot of really well done reviews. But there's a lot of reviews that are not worth the internet bandwidth that they've been printed on or recorded into. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that these systems are being gamed. Because I think, Rotten Tomatoes, if my mom's going to go see a movie, and if my mom's at home, my mom's 80. Sometimes she likes to go to lunch and a movie with her friends. She'll go to a place like Rotten Tomatoes and look at the score. I want my mom to be able to have a place where she can go do that. Rotten Tomatoes is that way. Thankfully, we don't have all of our many people in our community who get angry about these things. They're not going to go and talk about whether or not fried green tomatoes. I don't know why I pulled that out, but that's just a movie that my mom would run out and see. No one's going to be going and messing with the aggregate score of fried green tomatoes on Rotten Tomatoes. Which is good. So my mom will be able to find, I mean, my mom doesn't care about Captain Marvel. She doesn't know what Captain Marvel is. So whether anyone's gaming the system there and my mom isn't going to watch Sticks and Stones anytime soon. I think she might find some of Dave Chappelle funny. Most of it would go over her head. But yeah, it's unfortunate that both the critics and the audience's agendas here are being used to manipulate what could be a pretty good tool to help the casual moviegoer find something that they want to see. And ultimately, that's the thing that bums me out. Because there's nothing wrong. Like, what I don't understand, it's like we've all become, I talked about at science fiction conventions when I was younger, when I was a kid, the mundanes, the people that don't understand science fiction. I mean, this idea that you're at a science fiction convention making fun of the people that aren't there. There's always been this exclusivity within the confines of the genre community, but it always seems so silly. When I go back to Seattle and see my friends, they're like, hey, you still working in movies? I'll be like, yeah. They're like, oh, cool. Let's go snowboarding. It's like, they don't care. And it's, I understand all of our communities, we want them to be special, but, I think Rotten Tomatoes is something that could be a good thing for people. And they're trying to make it good for people because ultimately it's promoting movie going. Now, if a movie's not good, it's not good. I don't think that, that we can do anything. We can really do anything about. If you don't like Rotten Tomatoes or you want to game that system, people are going to do it. But I think it can be useful. It's just it bums me out that people spend their time gaming the Rotten Tomatoes algorithms or things like that because they don't like something. It's like, let's not let anybody. It's so weird to me because it's fascism is what it is. Like let people see what they want and then have a discussion about it afterwards. If Brie Larson, the person, if she says something that you don't like, how does that have anything at all to do with Captain Marvel? Brie Larson is an actor portraying a part that was written for her. Now they've cast her in the movie, okay, but I get it. But what? She's not allowed to have her own opinions. Brie Larson's an actress. She's playing a character named Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel does not have the same values or belief system that Brie Larson does as a human being. Captain Marvel has the belief system the writers and the directors and Disney gave to her in the script and whatever Brie Larson brought to the role. But to get mad because Brie Larson says something about, wouldn't it be better to not have, as many old white male critics? Well, she's right. Based on my own YouTube analytics, I can say the first of all, here's the thing that really bothers me, since I'm going on and on and on about this. But if there was a lot of women clamoring to be critics that were somehow being denied, well, that's a problem. Absolutely. But the internet is democratized. Anybody who wants to write reviews can write reviews. But the real question is, were there female or people of color or other critics other than the white male critics that were being denied access or the ability to get on a press junket for a movie like that? That's the real question, and I think that's what Brie Larson was ultimately asking. And she sees a preponderance of dudes, and that's because, let's face it, science fiction, fantasy, horror, especially those kinds of films, have been for a long time there's been a preponderance of dudes as fans, and we've seen a huge shift over the last 25 years, which is great. I've seen it in my own life. I used to argue with Amy Dallin. I said, Amy, when we were doing Heroes together, she would always say, there's always been female fans. And I get it. I understand. And I love Amy. And that's true. There's always been female fans. But as somebody who's been going to conventions since the 70s, I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, because I've been to a lot of conventions, there were a lot less women back then than there are now. Even at San Diego Comic-Con, when I started going in 1988, a lot less women than there are now. Why? Because females have been given, the females of the species. I saw as video games and anime started growing to prominence in the late 80s and early 90s, and you had more and more girls. It was the same thing. Women had stuff they were interested in. And it doesn't matter what your gender is or your sexuality is. If you start being interested in things like video games and anime and science fiction and Star Wars and cosplay, if you find environments, and a lot of it with the rise of the internet, same thing happened. So there's just as many fans of all ilks as there have ever been. And I think that's great. It's a great thing for everybody. And the more audience that we have, the better off. It's just, I understand we were part of an exclusive club for a while that now there's a lot more members. But at the end of the day, we're living through an evolutionary period of time that can be, I just call it, I guess my way of dealing with all of this is to be bemused. I always say being bemused. That's the best way to be, I think. You got to be bemused by everything. If anything to do with science fiction, Star Wars, as much as I rail against Star Trek Discovery, to be honest, I don't think about it that much. I don't, because I've still, like tonight, I'm going to go see Star Trek the Motion Picture in a movie theater. The last time I saw it was when I saw it, actually, I think it was 1999, with Robert Wise, as they were gearing up to do the director's edition of Star Trek the Motion Picture for home video. I saw Star Trek the Motion Picture at the Directors Guild with Robert Wise and a bunch of my friends. And it was great. And that was 1999. That was 20 years ago. I haven't seen Star Trek the Motion Picture in a theater in 20 years, which I'm excited about. But yeah, where were we? What were we talking about? Aliens? But that was a good letter, Mark. And I thank you for writing. I thought that was a good letter. Definitely a good letter. All of you guys write good letters all the time. It's fantastic. Brandon Valenzuela is here. Sleepwalkers was on last night. I love that movie, and it's more awesome since you helped make it. Well, what Brandon is talking about, Stephen King's first original screenplay was the Mick Garris movie Sleepwalkers that came out in the early 90s. I did work on that movie. I don't think I'm credited in that movie, though. I don't think I have a screen credit, and this happens sometimes. So I was working for Tony Gardner's Altarian Studios. And while I was at Altarian Studios, Altarian Studios is a special effects makeup company. And I was basically a glorified PA or runner assistant coordinator, whatever you wanted to call me. But I would get a production assistant credit on the movies and things that we worked on, like the TV movie Cast a Deadly Spell, where Fred Ward played a detective named Lovecraft. The Swamp Thing television series. I worked, of course, on Army of Darkness, Sleepwalkers. And one summer I was working on the Swamp Thing TV series, Army of Darkness and Sleepwalkers, all at the same time. Now, basically what I did was Altarian was building all the facial appliances that some of them had to be applied every day, and scratches and things, and the dead cats that were hanging in the trees, all of that stuff. And what I would do every day is I was in charge of bringing whatever makeup pieces. They had to be baked and made the night before. I usually would take them to set in the morning or whenever they needed them, or I would take the stuff to set I would get the stuff to set the day before it was going to be used, basically. So I would roll in there, and Machen and Mick, oh my God, one of the most beautiful women. She was so nice. I would always walk in, into her trailer, into the makeup effects trailer, not her trailer, but the makeup effects trailer, and she'd be getting made up. She was delightful. She was so gorgeous. This was right after Twin Peaks. If you haven't seen The Uncut Dream Lover, let me tell you, James Spader, it's great stuff. William Shockley. Oh, but yeah, so that's what I did on Sleepwalkers, and it was fun because I would make these rounds. I'd go to the set of Army of Darkness up in Acton, then I'd drive wherever the hell, Mulholland. We're shooting on Mulholland today for Sleepwalkers. Then I'd go back to the office and paint Swamp Thing helmets for Dick Durock or facial appliances. It was a wonderful summer, ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful summer. That's my Richard Dreyfuss sort of. Who are you people? So yeah, but I'm glad you watch it. It has some really early CG transformation effects that they could definitely use a sprucing up, as it were. Definitely a sprucing up. I've got another letter I'm going to read. This comes. I'm going to get this last name wrong, I think, but I hope I don't. This is really short. This comes from Blake Wunderlich. Blake Wunderlich, I think. This is a short one. Hey, Rob. So I was thinking about how Netflix keeps canceling the good shows like The OA and Daredevil, but lets horrible shows like 13 Reasons Why get a third season. And why would they let a show called The Island get made? Wow. Well, first of all, Netflix is trying to make shows that hopefully will be good. That's what everybody hopes. But what ends up happening is it's all about their viewership at the end of the day. And there is a philosophy at Netflix, and I understand this, that they don't, think of it this way. Netflix is a supermarket. Netflix is a supermarket of content. And what happens is they want their aisles to be filled with anything their viewers could possibly want. Now, there are staple items that they go through a lot. That's their big shows, or their shows, they're like Friends or something, or The Office, the shows that people watched a lot of. They relied on those shows to keep people coming back. Unfortunately, most of their shows are not those shows. So they try and put as many cans on the aisle on the shelves in each aisle as possible, and there is no benefit to a show like the OA or the OA. I always say the OA because of Green Lantern, obviously. But I liked the OA. It was bonkers and interesting, and I really like movies like The Sound of Her Voice. And Britt Marling has done some crazy genre stuff, and I like it. So I was sad to see it go. But on the other hand, either the viewership didn't support a third season, because I think Netflix realizes that 3 seasons are basically as far as you go. Then you have to renegotiate deals. You have to pay a lot of people more money. And the problem with Netflix is that there's not a big benefit for Netflix to be producing shows once they get past the 3rd season. Why do we need 4 or 5 seasons? What we need is the turnover of people watching and keeping those new viewers moving into new stuff all the time. And it comes down to ratings and viewership and all of those things. But, Netflix, 3 seasons is enough for those cans on the shelf. You go into a 4th season, you got to renegotiate. And then if you're only going to do one more season, it becomes not as cost effective as, say, renegotiating for 3 more seasons. And that's expensive too. You know, I would expect this 3rd season of Ozark. I really like the first 2 seasons. I think the 3rd season is going to be the last season of Ozark. Why do a 4th season? So I think that's kind of what's going on there. But I agree with you. I mean, Stranger Things is such a hit for them that you're going to see, I guess, 5 seasons out of it. 13 Reasons Why. I mean, I was always surprised. Some of the Netflix shows that appeal to teens are huge. You know, that's why that show, I'm sure, had a huge viewership because of teen viewers watching that, because it's a topical subject, and I'm sure that's why it brought in the kind of viewership that it did. So, yeah, a good question. But again, that's don't take this as gospel. I'm just saying what I think. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring this chat, Robservations number 224, to an end. I want to thank you all for being here. As always, I want to thank my moderators. I want to thank Detective Jim. I want to thank the Sheriff of Nottingham, Terry. I want to thank Greg Smith, the home builder. And I want to thank the Honorable Mayor Mike Bodden of Riverdale, Iowa, for being also a moderator. He's been busy. I also want to say I've been working once again with Gabe. I don't know if he's going to be here Thursday or Friday, but Gabe Bologna, son of actor Joseph Bologna, the director of Tango Shalom. We are working on it again. It's been very exciting. I'm hoping to have him on the show live either today or tomorrow, where we can do a live show and you can ask Gabe Bologna. He's directed a horror film. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's recently written a script that Andy Serkis is going to direct after he finishes, hopefully, with Venom 2. You can talk to him about that. We can just talk about independent cinema. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does, it's going to happen either on tomorrow or Friday. So that will be cool. I also want to thank Lucky Tiger, men's grooming products for those men who want to look good and feel great. As you all know, if you go to their website, getluckytiger.com, and you punch in PGS when you check out and buy any of their wonderful products, you get 20% off your order. I don't think I talked about Lucky Tiger at the beginning of this chat. I might have. I don't remember. But anyway, I'm going to go read Hickman's new issue of X-Men. I haven't been so excited for the X-Men comics in a long time. Wow. Krakoa, man. Who would have thought? Who would have thought Krakoa? I'm telling you, I wonder if they're going to make a Krakoa action figure. Could they do that? I don't know, but Hickman's X-Men. Wow, I haven't been so interested in the X-Men in a very, very long time. And every week, I'm going to be sorry to see it go. I mean, this is issue 5. We got one more there for Power and House of X, man. They've only got a couple of issues left. There's only 4 issues, including the one today. Issue 5, is it Power of X came out today, or House of X? I forget. It's all. I'll tell you one thing. I haven't been so excited about X-Men comics in 15 years. I'm digging it. I don't know where they're going to go with it all. I'm curious. I saw Hickman tweet out something himself saying he was excited for everybody to read today's issue because apparently today's issue is full of interesting stuff. Looking forward to it. And all I can say is that Mr. Sinister, anytime Mr. Sinister shows up, I'm in. But anyway, I want to thank all of you for the super chats. I want to thank you for going to the website and writing letters. Remember, all the letters I read are available on the website. You can go read them. You can go comment on them. If you have more things to send me, you can do that. You can send me letters at the Burnettwork.net. There's all kinds of things to do, and it's expanding all the time. That website is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Before long, it's going to be an 11,000-mile-long space amoeba. You never know. And you know what? Fathom Events. If you're so inclined, Star Trek The Motion Picture is playing today in movie theaters. If you've never seen it before, it is the theatrical cut, or as some people like to say, the rough cut. But you can see the grandeur and awe and wonder that is Star Trek The Motion Picture, my favorite Star Trek movie, although I do think the director's edition is the best version of the film. But you can see it in theaters locally today. I don't know if you can on the East Coast of the United States. At 6 o'clock, you probably could get there. Fathom Events, check it out. So everyone, this Wednesday, Robservations number 224 coming to an end. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for indulging me. Thanks for being the community that you are. Thanks for being good imagination connoisseurs here that make up the Post-Geek Singularity community. I am going to bid you farewell. I'll be back tomorrow. I will not be on the John Campea show tomorrow. Probably not Friday either because of work. But every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, have a better day.